In today's recap, meet our protagonist, who was tragically hit by a truck on his way home from school, reincarnated into a world of magic amidst a brutal dragon war and battled on the front lines for 15 years. Emerging as a ninth circle Archmage, now he dreams of a peaceful life. He opens a quaint restaurant in the countryside, but life is far from quiet. Join us as we explore his life journey. Before we continue, did you know that 99% of you are not subscribed to the channel? Please help me reach 1,000 subscribers by hitting that subscribe button. The sun shone brightly in the clear blue sky above the snow-capped mountains. The silence was interrupted by the rhythmic pounding of a hammer driving a nail into the wall. The hammer's owner stepped back, admiring his handiwork. He stood before the beautiful building he had just completed, and with a smile declared it was finally enough. Tears welled up in his eyes, not of sorrow, but of pure joy. He had finally built his own restaurant. This joyful man was Ellison, a ninth-grade Archmage and the protagonist of our story. However, his journey began 15 years earlier, when he was just a regular high school student walking home from school, dreaming of becoming a chef. Ellison's biggest dream was to join the Culinary arts club in high school and eventually open his own small restaurant. But fate had other plans. One fateful day, as he walked home, a truck crashed into him and everything went black. To his astonishment, Ellison woke up in a completely unfamiliar world. As he tried to gather his senses, he took in the fantastical landscape around him. Before he could make sense of it, a firm hand grabbed his shoulder, and a man's voice urged him to pack up quickly or face death on the road. Confused and scared, Ellison noticed many people with backpacks moving in a hurry. The man explained that they were in a town called Greek, on the outskirts of the Ruburn Empire, which was under attack by red dragons. This new world was filled with magic, monsters, and an empire at war. For a man who just wanted to cook, this was a daunting reality. But Ellison knew he had to adapt. Even though he had been hit by a truck, he saw this as a second chance. He tried to stay positive, believing that this world couldn't be as bad as it seemed. His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of hooves. A man on horseback announced a decree from the king, urging the people to defend their country from the dragons. Despair spread among the crowd, but the man's words rallied them to fight. In the midst of this, Ellison stood out with his strange clothes and eyes filled with hopelessness. Summoned on a day of crisis, he had no choice but to join the military effort. Soon, Ellison found himself at the entrance to the barracks, sword in hand, preparing for drills. As he shouted along with everyone else in the name of the emperor, he couldn't help but think that maybe dying in the truck accident would have been easier. That marked the start of his journey as a knight. One day, a commander approached him with a piece of paper, revealing that he had high magical potential. This meant that after leaving the training center, he would join the Magic Corps. Ellison, who dreamed of becoming a chef, looked at the unappetizing food he was given and realized that being an archmage might be better than wielding a sword. As he tasted the food, he grimaced in disgust, thinking he had never eaten anything worse. However, the person next to him thought it wasn't bad. This struck Ellison because it suggested that the people of this world might have no taste. Watching them devour the unpalatable food, he had an epiphany. If he opened a restaurant with delicious food, it would surely succeed. From that moment on, he vowed to realize his dream, no matter the obstacles, even if it meant undergoing grueling training or fighting dragons. The war dragged on, and his dream kept him going, giving him hope that he would leave after 3 years of service. However, if he had known then that the war would last 15 years, he might not have been able to keep fighting. Fast forward to the present, in a time of peace. Walking past Ellison's restaurant, a woman noticed the store for the first time. She was even more surprised to see a man standing outside crying. Concerned, she approached him and asked if he was okay. The protagonist turned around and, with a smile, said he was just happy to finally open his own restaurant. When she asked if he was the owner, he introduced himself as Elle and learned her name was Rain. She commented that he must have moved here recently, and he confirmed it. Rain asked if he lived alone, and Elle explained that he lived with a friend from his service days who slept a lot and wouldn't wake up until the evening. Meanwhile, in one of the rooms, someone was sleeping soundly on the bed. As the main character, Elle, was about to open a restaurant, a woman smiled and asked if he needed a place to buy meat. Elle replied that he did and was just about to check if there was a butcher store in town. Delighted, the woman revealed that her husband owned a butcher shop and gave Elle directions. This was a great lead for Elle, so he decided to head there immediately. Before he left, the woman named Rain warned him that her husband had a tough temper. She added that if her husband was too harsh, Elle could mention that she sent him. Elle thanked her, thinking she was a kind person, and wondered what kind of husband she had. However, as soon as he arrived at the butcher shop, a bearded man greeted him with an annoyed and intimidating look, demanding to know why Elle was there. Elle turned pale and lost all confidence. Trembling, he explained that he was the new restaurant owner and wanted to order some meat. The butcher angrily pounded his fist on the table and flatly refused to sell, accusing Elle of trying to buy meat cheaply and sell it for a profit. The butcher's rant continued until suddenly Rain appeared, hitting him over the head with a frying pan and demanding to know what nonsense he was spouting. She apologized to Elle for the inconvenience and asked what kind of meat he needed. The butcher began to grumble about the difficulties of cutting meat, but Rain told him to shut up and stop blaming Elle. Meanwhile, Elle, watching from the sidelines, wanted nothing more than to go home. After calming her husband down, Renee sent him to fetch some meat. She apologized to Elle, explaining that her husband had a rough past as a mercenary, making him wary and bitter. Elle reassured her it was fine and inquired about his mercenary days. Renee confirmed it and mentioned that despite his experiences, her husband didn't seem that old. She asked if he had been drafted. He replied that he had faced many hardships over the past 15 years. When her husband returned, he dropped a bag on the table with a clatter and irritably announced it was Elle's meat. Elle awkwardly asked if it was the promised meat, to which the husband laughed wickedly, saying he'd only give the precious Bellerin meat to approved restaurants. Behind him, Renee transformed into a demon-like figure, exuding a murderous aura. Oblivious to his impending doom, he taunted Elle to make a delicious meal, warning that if it wasn't satisfactory, Elle wouldn't see another bite. Mr. Creston boasted about his refined taste and warned Elle to brace himself. Lost in thought, Elle became the target of Mr. Creston's mockery, suggesting that Elle might be scared already. The taunting continued until Renee knocked her husband out with a frying pan. She reassured Elle that her husband was tough and the pan wouldn't hurt him. She advised Elle to ignore the mocking, explaining her husband was joking and he didn't need to comply. Elle brushed off the mockery, expressing his willingness to cook for them. Surprising Renee, Elle accepted Mr. Creston's challenge and invited them to dinner at his restaurant. He promised a delicious meal that would surpass any doubts. Despite Renee's skepticism, Elle remained confident. She decided to test his skills by offering Bellerin meat, but Elle declined, saying the meat he had was enough. Renee warned him that the meat in the sack was just ordinary UBA belly fat, the local term for pigs in this world, where livestock have unique names. Back at his restaurant, Elle quickly understood why Mr. Creston took so much pride in the quality of his pork belly. Despite the locals considering palenku a luxury ingredient, Elle felt they didn't truly appreciate the allure of the meat in front of him. He decided grilling was the best way to savor it. With a flick of his hand, he conjured a ball of flame, igniting the grill. Meanwhile, Rain and Mr. Creston walked toward the restaurant, arguing about the events at the butcher shop. Rain questioned her husband about the need for approval when selling meat to a restaurant, wondering when he adopted such a high standard. She believed that Elle seemed like an honest and kind newcomer who deserved a chance. Mr. Creston defended himself, reminding her that she had only met Elle that morning and couldn't possibly know his true character so soon. Rain, slightly irritated, countered Mr. Creston's perspective, suggesting that rather than being deceived with both eyes open, he should consider that other people's eyes are more accurate. She saw through Mr. Creston's excuse of testing Elle's skills and pointed out that he was actually testing Elle's sense of responsibility. Mr. Creston fell silent, realizing she had a point. Trying to save face, he claimed to have a discerning palate, questioning what would happen if Elle's cooking didn't meet expectations. In a flashback, we see a terrifying humanoid monster with razor-sharp teeth letting out a deafening scream. A knight, struck by a massive club, falls to the ground. Another knight, overwhelmed by the enemy numbers, orders a retreat. Amid the chaos, a soldier trapped under rubble cries out for help. A menacing monster raises its club to strike the helpless soldier, who continues pleading. Suddenly, El steps forward, invoking his magical skill, Thermal Blade. Light radiates from his hand, cutting through the monsters with blade-like precision. Even the rubble is reduced to pieces, allowing the trapped soldier to be rescued. The knights, astonished by El's intervention, greet him with a mix of relief and respect, hailing him as a powerful mage, a great archmage, calling him Sir Ellison. In the present, El used the same magical skill, Thermal Blade, not for battling monsters, but for an ordinary yet important task. He casually used it to slice the meat, ensuring the marinade seeped deep into every fiber. As it cooked, the surface moisture evaporated, promising a crispy texture. Wiping his hands, El declared the meat ready. The doorbell chimed, and Rain and Mr. Creston entered. El welcomed them and asked them to take a seat. Rain admired the cleanliness and orderliness of the tavern, finding it appealing, but her husband remained unimpressed, dismissing it as merely clean. Undeterred, Rain pulled out her frying pan and asked him to be patient, assuring him that the food would be served soon, despite his grumpy attitude. El stood in the kitchen, a bit anxious, focusing on the pork belly's rich fat. He oiled the griller to prevent sticking and placed the meat on it, wishing he had more time to perfect the dish. The sizzle of the pork belly filled the room, heightening his anticipation. He carefully fried the skin, adjusting the heat for even cooking, and added a pinch of salt to enhance the flavor. Once the meat was thoroughly grilled, he cut it into bite-sized pieces. Next, he prepared a vegetable salad, slightly worried about how the locals might react to its unfamiliar flavors. Despite his doubts, he mixed various vegetables with a tangy dressing to balance the richness of the pork belly. El kept the presentation simple, knowing Creston's picky taste wouldn't appreciate unnecessary frills. The salad and grilled pork belly looked appetizing, and El served the meal. Rain was pleasantly surprised by the dish's appearance. Creston, however, grumbled, dismissing it as just looks. Rain took a bite of the pork belly, her eyes widening in delight. She asked El if it was really UBA meat, and he confidently confirmed. Rain described the pork belly as crispy on the outside and juicy inside, perfectly complemented by the fresh salad. She expressed her love for the meal, promising to supply El with meat in the future so she could enjoy his cooking again. El thanked her and turned to Creston, who had only a few vegetables left on his plate. Rain pointed out that the meat was gone. Nervously, El asked if Creston was satisfied. Creston slammed the table, demanding more meat, but before he could continue, Rain hit him with a frying pan, telling him to ask nicely if he wanted more. Grudgingly, Creston admitted that El's dish was the best UBA meat he had ever tasted. This sealed the deal, granting El access to the finest meat from the Lever Empire for his shop. El chuckled with satisfaction, and Rain was glad her husband had acknowledged El's culinary skills. The handshake sealed the deal, ensuring a steady supply of quality meat for El's business. Creston, satisfied with the meal, ordered another serving, marking a successful first day for El. Upstairs, a black-haired girl awoke, drawn by the delicious aroma wafting up from the kitchen. As the evening set in over Greek City, the suburb was bathed in a peaceful ambience. El, who had just opened a restaurant, was settling into his new culinary journey. As the evening unfolded, a courteous customer ordered 2 more servings of the UBA pork belly. El, with a bright smile, eagerly fulfilled the request. The plates were cleared quickly, and the departing customers showered El with compliments on his cooking. A satisfied smile spread across El's face as he bid them goodbye, inviting them to return soon. As the day came to a close, El, while drying his hands, considered closing up for the night. He noticed that his condiments and spices, essential for his flavorful dishes, were nearly depleted. El knew the importance of these ingredients and felt a pang of worry as he realized he was running low on pepper and other spices. In this world, such spices were rare and precious. The quality and variety of these essentials were nowhere near what he was used to in his former world. So El took a gold coin and placed it at the center of a magical circle. As he recited an incantation, energy and light emanated from the circle, creating a mystical display in the quiet corner of Greek City. Through this magic, El could summon items from his original world, like the special spices and condiments he needed. The summoning magic would make these items appear out of thin air once completed. El had discovered this magic by accident while trying to find a way back to his world. After using the summoning magic, he wiped his forehead and noted that it had its limitations, such as the size and quantity of items he could summon. Despite these limits, the magic was incredibly helpful, though it couldn't transport him back to his world. El felt a bit guilty about taking items, even though he exchanged them for a gold coin. A peculiar aspect of the magic was that groceries, unless processed, would arrive spoiled. The summoning left El feeling drained, and he was still getting used to that sensation. Even as an Archmage, he could only perform this summoning trick once a day. While cleaning up, El decided to take a break and enjoy a beer he had summoned previously. However, when he opened the fridge, he found it empty. Puzzled and annoyed, he called out to Lauren, who was sleeping upstairs surrounded by empty beer cans. She giggled in her sleep, dreaming about El tickling her. Suddenly, she woke up with a start, rubbing her head and accusing El of hitting her without reason. Holding an empty beer can, El pointed out that she had drunk all the beer without asking, and that he only wanted her to clean up after herself. Lauren retorted, claiming El deserved it for not leaving her any food last time. Proudly declaring her dragon heritage, she insisted that cleaning was beneath her. Frustrated, El gave her another gentle tap on the head and instructed her to peel and organize the onions. Lauren, still teary-eyed from the earlier bump, grumbled but complied. As El watched her, he reflected on her true nature as a dragon in human form. After the Dragon War, El found Lauren, who had lost her mother and home, leaving her an orphan. Not able to leave her alone, El took her in, and they've been together ever since. Despite being over a century old, Lauren still acts young, which might explain her occasional immaturity. Now, with tears in her eyes from peeling onions, El promises her a delicious hamburger steak for dinner if she finishes the task without complaining. Her eyes light up with excitement at the thought. Just then, the door swings open, drawing El's attention to Mr. Creston entering the room. El puts his kitchen tasks on hold to greet him as Mr. Creston takes a seat and orders some alcohol and snacks. Relieved that it's just Mr. Creston, El assures him that his order will be ready soon. Realizing they're out of beer, El decides to offer soju instead, grateful for the bottle he had summoned earlier, though he considers changing its container soon. El brings a plate of meat and the bottle of soju to Creston's table. Expecting beer, Creston is surprised and asks if the liquid in the bottle is water. El assures him it's not and encourages him to try it. With a hint of skepticism, Creston pours himself a cup and takes a sip. El watches as Creston nibbles on the meat and savors the soju. To El's delight, Creston enjoys the pairing. He describes the soju as initially bitter, but ending on a sweet note that complements the meat perfectly. The combination, different from a salad he had last time, impresses him. Praising El's cooking skills, Creston asks for another bottle of alcohol. El obliges, but he notices a subtle change in Creston's behavior and wonders if something is troubling him. As the table fills with empty bottles, Creston signals for another round. Concerned, El warns him about the high alcohol content. Ignoring the caution, a red-faced Creston insists on another bottle, wanting to drown his sorrows. Worried, El asks Creston what has happened to cause such heavy drinking. Creston, with a sorrowful tone, calls out his wife's name, Rain. He suspects that Rain might be unfaithful. El listens intently as Creston begins to share the troubling events. Rain often dresses up and leaves, saying she'll be back soon. This has become a recurring pattern, and consumed by suspicion, Creston decided to follow her one day, his body trembling with anxiety. As Creston continues his story, his fist hits the table, revealing the painful truth. Rain, it seems, has been meeting a man from her past, a comrade from her mercenary days. This man, once a close friend of Creston, had disappeared when Creston opened his butcher shop. Now it appears he's been spending time with Rain, possibly too ashamed to face Creston. The distressing revelation deepens as Creston shares that Rain had gone out again, even outside her usual monthly pattern. With a shaking fist, Creston grapples with the belief that his wife no longer cares for him. El, taking in Creston's pain, listens quietly as the heartbreaking story unfolds. El offers a comforting hand, urging Creston to take a moment to gather his emotions. El advises that Drowning his sorrows in alcohol won't solve the underlying issues. He bites his trembling lips, unable to imagine life without Rain. In desperation, he turns to Elle for guidance. With a steady tone, Elle suggests leaving the matter in his hands. Confused, Creston questions Elle. Elle, acknowledging that he hasn't known Rain for long, offers reassurance, expressing his belief that Rain might not be the type to cheat, and asks Creston for patience. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Lauren continues peeling onions, tears streaming down her cheeks in frustration. She mutters that Elle is an idiot. Wearing his mage outfit, Elle enters the kitchen and asks Lauren to stop peeling onions. Curious, Lauren asks why, and Elle mentions there's a task at hand. Despite initial reluctance, Lauren agrees to accompany him. As the night takes on a festive air, the town bustles with activity. Elle and Lauren find themselves on a rooftop, observing a lively restaurant. Lauren innocently comments on the crowded scene in other restaurants, unknowingly hurting Elle's feelings. He points out the general area where Rain might be. Scanning the restaurants, Elle spots Rain with a man, and a realization strikes him. This might be the colleague Creston mentioned earlier. Elle, with a suspicious look, calls Lauren over and discreetly points towards Rain and the man talking at a corner table. He asks Lauren to eavesdrop on their conversation. Lauren, always up for a deal, negotiates with Elle. She agrees in exchange for a serving of his delicious hamburger steak, and Elle promises not to demand any extra ingredients for his cooking. He even guarantees her 2 hamburgers if she cooperates. Lauren nods, sealing the agreement. As Lauren listens in on the conversation between Rain and the man named Mint, she hears Rain asking if they should tell her husband, Mr. Creston, about their association. The mention of Creston reveals some underlying concern. Mint explains that Creston is troubled and suspicious because Mint hasn't been visiting the butcher shop. Mint suggests that if Creston knew he had helped the shop with money after Creston got scammed, Creston would be the one avoiding Mint. Elle, taking in the snippets of conversation, contemplates the situation. He asks Lauren to confirm what she heard. Reassured by Lauren, Elle realizes that the story is not just about a love affair, but about complex connections and unspoken bonds. He gracefully descends from the rooftop, signaling the end of Lauren's eavesdropping mission. With confidence, he announces that there's no need to listen any longer. Lauren, left in the wake of Elle's departure, asks what she should do next. Elle suggests she simply head home for now. Inside the restaurant, Rain expresses her frustration at her husband's misconceptions to Mint. Elle casually enters and asks to join their discussion. He agrees with Rain, saying that Creston has misunderstood their relationship. Creston, drunk and still fixated on thoughts of his wife, sees Rain and Mint entering Elle's restaurant. An uncomfortable tension fills the air as Mint, slightly hesitant, greets Creston after a long absence. Creston, angry, observes the seemingly close pair. Rain tries to defend their relationship, insisting they are victims of misunderstanding, but Creston remains unconvinced. In his frustration, Creston questions why it had to be Mint, someone he trusted. In a fit of rage, he leaps towards Mint, ready to punch him, calling him a bastard. Suddenly, a magical shield appears, creating a barrier between Creston's fist and Mint's face. The wind stirs as the shield repels the punch. Mint, bewildered, is spared from Creston's wrath. Rain recognizes the shield as magic. The unexpected turn of events leaves the trio in a standstill. Elle quietly approaches, calling out to Mint. He urges Mint to settle the misunderstanding instead of fighting. Holding a basket of meat and vegetables, Elle asserts that violence won't solve the problem. He reveals that if Creston knew Mint provided the money for the butcher shop, the situation might calm down. Creston, surprised by these revelations, turns to Elle for an explanation. Elle, taking on a peacemaker role, invites them to sit and talk as he begins to prepare some food. Elle, realizing that a heartfelt conversation might resolve their issues, carefully arranges the ingredients for a warm meal. Considering his own day-long drinking spree, he decides on shabu shabu, a comforting dish. Using Rain's gift of Bellerin meat, he skillfully prepares various sauces, infusing them with soy sauce, strained anchovies, and a touch of MSG. In no time, the shabu shabu is ready, and Elle wipes his hands clean, hopeful that the conflict outside has ceased. As they gather around the table, Creston confronts Rye, struggling to understand that Mint was the benefactor behind his butcher shop. Rain, taking a deep breath, confirms it. She explains that after Creston was scammed and left penniless, Mint came to their aid, providing the financial support needed to open the shop. In the rhythm of their butcher shop's success, Rain met with Mint every month, slowly repaying the debt that helped Creston's business. The truth hits Creston hard. He fires back, questioning if the money came from the Lord's castle as repayment for the scam. Mint, feeling the weight of his actions, asked Creston if he would have accepted the money if he knew it came from Mint. Apologizing, Mint explains he couldn't be present on the shop's opening day, fearing it would seem deceitful. Mint, unaware of Creston's struggles, never imagined the depth of his friend's difficulties. The conversation lingers as Elle arrives with food. Apologizing, he advises that the vegetables shouldn't be overcooked and encourages them to enjoy the meal while talking. As Elle serves, Mint, puzzled by the thin meat, inquires about it. Elle explains that the Bellerin meat from Creston's shop is sliced thin for the dish, cooked directly in the broth. Mint, pleased with the flavors, laughs and urges Creston to try. Hesitant, Creston takes a sip and is pleasantly surprised by the taste. Mint stirs up old memories, asking Creston about the Perrin battle. Creston remembers sacrificing himself, taking a sword for Mint. The battle had lasted longer than expected, leaving them with a watery soup as their sustenance. Mint recounts catching a wild Bellerin collapsing near Creston upon entering their tent. The plain soup crafted from the Bellerin, though tough and pungent, was their best option. As Mint revisits these memories, he highlights their shared past of sacrifice and sustenance. Creston, visibly moved, trembles as he responds to Mint. He echoes Creston's earlier question, revealing he had no grand plans. Helping his friend took priority. Tears stream down Creston's face as he holds the soup bowl, apologizing with a stutter. Elle, witnessing this emotional exchange, expresses his satisfaction with the resolution. Mint, taking a sip of the soup, finds it heartwarming. In that shared bowl of soup, unspoken emotions are exchanged, and misunderstandings begin to heal. In the background, Lauren interjects, pointing out to Elle the importance of a promise to a dragon and criticizing him for not keeping it. Elle, perplexed, scratches his head. With a reassuring tone, he suggests making hamburger steak for Lauren right away. However, Lauren, her patience thin, points out that it's already late. She questions how Elle could dismiss her request when all she wanted was for him to fulfill his part of the contract. In the kitchen, Mint meets Elle. Quickly, Elle covers Lauren's mouth to silence her protests and casually tells Mint he hopes the meal was enjoyable. Mint acknowledges the delicious food, but moves on to his purpose. He reveals his mercenary group has a mission to escort someone important, and they want to have a dinner before they leave. He asks if they can have this special dinner at Elle's restaurant. Surprised by the request, Elle contemplates hosting a group of mercenaries for dinner. Palenku, a rare bird, is highly prized for its meat due to its frequent habitat changes. Elle, frustrated by the difficulty of catching one, jokes about burning the forest to get the prize meat for the dinner. He asks Creston about Palenku meat, comparing it to finding gold. Disappointed when Creston doesn't have any, Elle questions him further. Creston, feeling guilty, recalls hearing about a Palenku sighting in the lemon forest. Elle decides to check it out, but, exhausted, eventually gives up and asks Lauren to catch one, promising to wash the dishes in return. Lauren uses a powerful black aura and a dragon roar to scare and knock out a Palenku, earning Elle's gratitude. Elle humorously compares his fate to the Palenku, as he's already eaten a dragon's heart. He asks Lauren to catch 15 more Palenku. After their successful hunt, Lauren, though irritated, enjoys a beer, and Elle warns against drinking too much. As night falls, the restaurant fills with skeptical mercenaries. Mint confidently assures them the food will be exceptional. A young mercenary named Miltain boldly declares his faith in the restaurant's quality based on Mint's recommendation. Despite his colleagues' skepticism, Miltain stands by his claim, but Mint tells them to stop chatting as the food is arriving. Elle appears with the dishes, and Mint apologizes for the noise, acknowledging the celebration. Elle welcomes them, and Mint introduces Miltain, who has high expectations. Elle serves the dish, and Miltain is shocked to learn it's Palenku, a bird even professional hunters struggle to catch. Elle, confused by Miltain's reaction, invites them to taste it. Amazed by the flavor, they praise Elle's cooking and declare the restaurant the best. Milton, enjoying the dish, is warned not to eat it all. Elle, happy with their response, promises to bring dishes to other tables, but struggles due to the high number of customers. He reluctantly asks Lauren for help. Lauren, initially resistant, agrees after Elle reminds her of their plan to open a restaurant together after the war. Sensing a shift in the atmosphere, Elle suggests Lauren return to her lair, but she changes her mind and agrees to help. With Lauren's assistance, Elle's workload eases, ensuring smooth operation. After finishing the tasks, a tired Lauren receives praise from Elle, who invites her to join him for a meal and beer. While enjoying the palanku meat, Lauren compliments Elle's cooking. Surprised and pleased, Elle notices the restaurant looks clean. When all the customers leave, Lauren has cleaned the entire place. Elle asks if she's matured, and Lauren attributes it to their shared responsibility for the restaurant, leaning her head on Elle's shoulder with a smile. In the peaceful atmosphere, Elle tries to remind Lauren of their bet about dishwashing, but Lauren disagrees. Suddenly, Lauren becomes alert, noticing a mysterious figure outside. Elle, surprised by her sudden change, understands when he sees the person entering. That's all for today. Thank you for watching till the end. Help me get to a 1,000 subscriber by hitting the subscribe button. See you in the next video. Till then, bye.